Hello, welcome to Interviewing with Confidence. My name is Valentina Bafunwa, and I am the CEO and founder of Fiat Career Coaching. Think of the last interview you went on. What was it like leading up to it? Were your palms sweating? Was your mind racing? Were you wondering, oh my goodness, how am I going to answer the question of tell me about yourself? Or why are you leaving your current employment? Well, if those thoughts have ever crossed your mind, if you've ever had those feelings, then this course is for you. In this session, I will teach you what you need to do before you even begin the interview and what you should do while you're in the interview. I'll also teach you how to present yourself well on a virtual setup, especially considering with all the interviewing that's taking place virtually through Zoom. By the end of the session, you'll feel more confident and more prepared leading up to your next interview. So let's begin. Welcome to today's session on interviewing with confidence. Throughout this session, you'll learn how to effectively prepare, engage, and conclude an interview. You'll also learn how to confidently answer structured and behavioral style questions. And then lastly, you'll learn how to set yourself up for success for phone and virtual Zoom interviews. And throughout this session, you'll hear from HR managers and recruiters who will share what they are looking for while they're interviewing a candidate. As we go through this session, I just encourage you to find a quiet place to close all browsers and put your phone on silent, just to minimize distractions. And lastly, grab a notebook and a pen. Let's get started. Let's begin with a prayer. Would you join me? Take, Lord, and receive all my liberty, my memory, my understanding, and all my will, all that I have and possess. You, Lord, have given all that to me. I now give it back to you, O Lord. All of it is yours. Dispose of it according to your will. Give me love of yourself along with your grace, for that is enough for me. Amen. How do you typically prepare for an interview? Do you review your resume to remind yourself of your past accomplishments? Do you research the interviewer or the company to learn more about them? Or do you tend to just wing it? Well, if you tend to wing it, I do encourage you to take time to prepare. It'll ensure that you truly are providing or bringing your best self to that interview. Before you begin preparing, though, I encourage you to begin with a prayer. Ask God to be with you, to illuminate your mind, to calm your nerves, and to help you prepare the questions that you need to prepare for. I promise doing so will set your mind at ease, and He will be with you. Also, take time to organize yourself. I have a course on how to get into the job search mindset that really talks about positive thinking. So if you struggle with negative thoughts or self-sabotaging thoughts, I recommend that you check out that course as you're preparing for your interview, because it will really help put you in the right headspace. The reason why is because when you go into that interview, know that it's your opportunity to learn more about the company and to see if it's a place where you want to be. That interview shouldn't be a desperate plea to make sure you get the job at all costs. No, it's a two-way street. You're interviewing them as well as them interviewing you. So go in with clarity as to what it is that you want in a job, in a career, and in a culture. Do take the time to prepare your resume beforehand. And if it is an in-person interview, bring a copy of it with you. They may not need it, but it would be a good way for you to glance down in case you forget something that you've done in the stress of the moment. And also take time to not only prepare interview questions that you might get asked, but questions that you have for them. Again, the interview is your opportunity to learn more about the company and about the culture and to see if it's a place where you want to be. So now let's hear from an HR manager as to what she looks for in the interview process. Laura says, be able to answer why you want to work for the company you're applying for. A simple, I need a new job and this happened to cross my path on Indeed or LinkedIn is not okay. Come prepared with questions and be prepared to thoroughly answer questions. The interview doesn't need to be a one-way conversation. So, how do you go about researching the company and the industry? The good news is you'll have plenty of information at your fingertips. First of all, with the job description, it'll list exactly what the position is, but it'll also give you insights into the key skills that they're looking for, as well as insights into their culture. So utilize that as you're preparing. And just like you did with your resume, where you highlighted keywords and key skills, have those at the back of your mind and be able to answer how your skill sets apply to what the job is and what they're looking for. Also take advantage of looking at internal and external publications, such as the company's website, if they have more than one, the LinkedIn profile of that company, Glassdoor, where you can find information from people who actually work there or worked there in the past, and they'll give you an insight into what the culture is. I will say though, with Glassdoor is take it with a grain of salt. Not everyone who works at the company who's had a positive experience will be ready to share. You may find it skewed to those who may have had a more negative experience. But either way, it's more information in your toolkit. And also, if you have the time before your interview, find a way to interview people who actually work there. Maybe find somebody on LinkedIn where you can just say, hey, I'm about to interview for this company with this company, and I'd love to learn more about what it's like to work there. What has your experience been? And this is a lot easier to do, I know, if you know the person that works there, or maybe it's a friend of a friend, but utilize your LinkedIn network to help you with this. Also, be sure to research news about the company. So just a Google search of X company news in Google will pull up information as to what's happening, if there is something happening with the company. That way, when you go into the interview, you can present yourself more intelligently because you know everything there is to know about the company as best as you can. Also research their competitors. That way you can present potential ideas or solutions based on what you see they're doing. And it could be a great way to ask questions around that. So researching the company and the industry will not only set you apart as a candidate, but will also put your mind at ease because you'll go in already knowing more about the company that you hopefully want to work for. Peter, an HR manager at Yeshua America, had the following advice. He says, research the company, memorize the job description, come up with examples of your current past job duties that coincide with the job description, i.e., come up with examples of how you have the skills to do the job they're going for. Stay positive. Avoid bashing and negative comments regarding past employers and bosses. And this is really key advice. Regardless of how your experience was at your past company or your current company, however you speak about that company in an interview, it's going to be an indicator for them as to how you're going to speak about them in the future. So keep it positive. Now let's talk about what to do during the interview. How many seconds does it take to form a first impression? According to a study by Princeton University, it only takes 1/10 of a second. That's not a lot of time. But I have some tips of how you can make a very strong first impression. Some tips on how to make a good first impression. Smile. When you first meet the person, I know you may be nervous, but take some deep breaths and smile. It will make you approachable and more relaxed. Also, maintain a good eye contact while you're in the interview. Be upbeat and positive, have good posture, and come prepared, knowing about the company, as well as bringing your resume and being ready to share about yourself and your past experiences. And I really recommend taking time to breathe prior to the interview. Just take a couple deep breaths in and out, and that will also relax your body and get you in the right mindset. There's also a video that I want to share with you, and it's by Amy Cuddy, and it's about a Superman pose. I don't want to give anything away, but I do encourage you to check out that link after the session or even right now. Now let's talk more about behavioral-based questions. Brian, an HR manager at BD, had this suggestion. Always give actual examples to questions you are asked. If you don't give examples of past performance, they will wonder if you really have done it before or if you're just given the textbook answer. Always be honest and open about who you are. If the fit is not right, it is better for you and them to know that now rather than a few months post-hire. Once you've met your interviewer, you've made a very strong first impression, then it's time to actually start the interview. During the interview, you might encounter different styles of questions, and these questions might range based on your job that you're applying for or the specific industry. Here are some examples of different styles and types that you may encounter. You may get the more structured interview style where each candidate is asked the same exact question, or you might be asked to present, and you'll be told this prior to, so you'll be asked to present maybe a 15-minute presentation or an hour-long presentation on a topic, and then be interviewed afterwards. Or you may be asked to do some kind of skill assessment that will test your abilities. This may be an essay you write or an analysis that you do. Just something where the recruiter and the hiring manager can know what you can actually do, where you basically prove it to them. Or you may encounter situational-based questions where they might ask you more hypothetical type questions, like, if you were in this situation, what would you do? Or the most common type of interview style is behavioral-based questions. And this is what we're going to focus on the most, that and structured interview questions in this section. Behavioral-based questions are more of asking you about your past to see how you will respond in the future. Here are some examples of some behavioral-based questions. If a hiring manager wanted to know about how you handle conflict, they might ask you, tell me about a time you had a disagreement with a coworker or manager and how you handled it. Or if they want to know about your time management skills, they may ask you to describe a situation that required you to juggle several projects at the same time. What did you do and what was the result? So you may be thinking, well, Valentina, how do I know what type of behavioral questions to practice? Don't worry, the job description will actually give you a lot of tips on what you should focus on. And we'll review a job description together in a second, so I'll show you how you can do this. Also, think of challenges someone in this role might face. Do they need to juggle multiple projects? Do they need to manage conflict? Think of times where you have handled similar situations and make a note of them. In the next section, I'll talk about how you can structure your response in a way that's succinct and answers the question in a very clear manner. Let's do this together. Imagine for a minute that you're applying for a stylist position with Stitch Fix. Stitch Fix is a company where you can receive clothes in the mail based on your design preferences. So let's say you wanted to apply for this position and you want to know what type of behavioral questions to practice. Well, the job description gives us a hint on this. In the first line, they ask, are you passionate about delighting customers? Are you extraordinary at time management? Are you tech savvy and a quick learner? Well, those right there are key things that they may ask us about in the interview. They may ask you to share about a time where you delighted customers, or they might ask you how you manage multiple projects, or they may ask you how you used technology, especially one that you're not used to, and shows that you are a quick learner. Using the job description is an easy way to figure out what questions you might get asked. Now that you have a list of potential behavioral-based questions you may get asked, the next step is to structure your response using the STAR method. We'll use the question at the bottom as a way to structure this response. So let's say you're asked the question to tell them a time when you went above and beyond for a customer. What did you do and what was the result? So if you were posed this question, using the STAR method, you would first describe the situation. What happened? Let's say a customer came in and they wanted a particular pair of shoes that they saw online, but it wasn't there in the store. Then you would describe what your role was. So were you a salesperson? Were you the manager? What role did you play? Basically, you're setting the stage for those listening. Then you will explain what you did. So let's say the customer couldn't find the shoe in person, then in store, then you may call a different store, offer to ship it to them directly. You may go there yourself if it's something that you wanted to do and you could. You basically describe what you did. And then lastly, you would explain what the result was. What was the outcome? The customer was elated. They were able to get the shoes that they needed for their wedding. So they send you an invitation in the mail. I don't know, whatever it was. You just describe your result. So this particular method is something that you can use whenever you get any kind of behavioral-based question. So what do you do if you get a behavioral-based question or any kind of question that you don't know how to answer? Well, don't freak out. You have a couple options. The first option is to ask for more time and just say something like, that's a really good question. Give me 1 second to think about this. And then as you think, begin to take your best guess and basically think out loud. So you would say something like, well, although I've never been in this situation before, first I would do this, then second I would do this, and thirdly I would do that. Or if you truly have no clue where to start and you're maybe a little bit confused by the question, it's okay to ask them for to clarify it. So something like, gosh, I didn't quite follow what you were asking. Can you ask it again in a different way? Or if you truly, even after them clarifying, are not sure how to answer, it's okay. Just let them know, just to say, gosh, I truly don't know how to answer that question, but I'm happy to answer another question that you may have for me. And maybe later on in the interview, if an answer comes to you, you can bring it up again and answer it then. Let's talk about the typical first question, which is, tell me about yourself. When you get this question, it may be tempting to talk about your hobbies, whether or not you're married or any pets you have, or even where you're from. I want to discourage you from doing that. When a hiring manager asks this question, yes, they want to know who you are, but more so, they want to know what value you will bring to their organization. And the way you can do this is to share your professional experience, why you're interested in the job, and why you are the best candidate. The way you can frame that is by first sharing what your current role is and any achievement you've achieved in that role. Then talk about your past roles and those achievements you achieved there. And then lastly, you will share about your future, what you understand of the role and why you are a good fit. Now, let's say you get this typical last question, which is, why do you want to leave your current job? In this situation, if you had a negative experience at your current job or your past jobs, it may be tempting to say like, oh gosh, I had terrible coworkers, or I didn't like my job, or it was low pay and I wasn't valued. Don't mention that. Instead, focus on just being grateful for the position that you had, what you learned there, and your excitement for this new opportunity and skills that you're going to learn there. And then also what strengths that you have that you will bring to this new employer. Now that we've tackled the common interview styles and types and common questions that you may receive, now let's actually begin to wrap up the interview. This is the part that is the most fun, I believe, because Basically, people will remember most how you started and how you ended. And so, in terms of concluding the interview and conclude it in a way that shows a confidence, first, ask the interviewer prepared questions. Remember, we talked about this in the beginning, that as you were preparing for the actual interview, you jotted down questions that you were going to ask them. Now is your time to ask them those questions. Then ask if there's anything they would like further clarification on. Let's say they asked you a question and you couldn't quite remember, or you were getting a little stuck on what to say. Then they may bring it up and just say, hey, I'd like to learn more about this, or do you have an answer now, kind of thing. And that's your opportunity to answer. It's also an opportunity for you to then deliver a closing statement where essentially you explain why you were the best candidate for the job. Once you've done all that, then ask what the next steps are. It's okay to seek clarification in that. And then finally, say thank you. Thank them for their time, thank them for interviewing you, and express your excitement as to the next steps. As telephone and virtual interviews become more common, I have a couple tips that will set you up for success. If you're using a laptop or a phone to take your video interview, ensure that your technology is up to date and has enough battery. So if you're using your phone, make sure it's plugged in or it's been charged. Your laptop, it's plugged in as well. And if you're using Zoom or WebEx for the interview, make sure that you have the latest version before the interview starts. Also, if there are other people in your home, if that's where you're taking your call, have them go to another room so that there's minimal distraction and that no one can hear them as well. Also, if you're on video, ensure that you have good lighting. That way that they can see you and see your beautiful smile, and your personality can really shine through. Also, be prepared to answer the salary expectation question, especially if this is the first interview with the recruiter. If you're not sure what the salary range is, go ahead and ask, but also do some research beforehand. Find similar roles where the salary range may be listed, and find what similar salary ranges are for the city where you work. And then lastly, be sure to practice, either with a friend or a career coach like me. If you would like to practice for your interview, you can get onto my website and book a time with me, and I will be happy to practice with you. Also, I have a video that I would love for you to see. It gives you tips on how to set up your computer if you are having a video interview on your computer. I think you'll really like it. Okay, let's do a mock interview. I know I won't be there in person with you, but it's still an opportunity for you to practice. I'm going to show you a couple questions, and as you get each question, I want you to pause the video and take time to jot down your responses and respond to me. I know, again, I won't be there, but just trust me, it's just added practice. Tell me about yourself. Describe a situation that required you to juggle several projects at the same time. What did you do, and what was the result? Can you tell me about a difficult work situation and how you overcame it? Okay, how did it go? What went well? What would you do differently next time? Whatever your response is, go ahead and jot them down and reflect on it so you can keep that in mind at your next interview. Here's some advice from Stella, who's an HR generalist at Gladwell Dental. She says, prepare, practice, ask questions, and be yourself. As much as the company is interviewing you, you're interviewing them as well. Make sure you're aligned with the company's values and way of working for higher likelihood of you loving where you work and who you work with. In today's session on interviewing with confidence, we've talked about how to effectively prepare, engage, and conclude an interview. You've heard from HR managers and generalists as to what they look for in candidates and what advice they have for them. I hope you feel more confident in answering structured and behavioral style questions, and also feel more confident as you begin to prepare for your phone and virtual Zoom interviews. It has been a blast working with you in this course, and I hope to see you in future courses. I want to leave you with a final verse, and it's from John 15, verses 7 to 8, where Jesus says, "If you abide in me and my words abide in you, you will ask what you desire, and it shall be done for you. By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, so you will be my disciples." So be sure to ask your Heavenly Father for help as you prepare and during your interview. He wants you to be successful. For your homework, I want you to write 2-star responses for behavioral-based questions for a job you're applying for. Also memorize John 15, 7 to 8. And lastly, Nung Chepi, begin again. If at any point you become discouraged, or let's say you have an interview and it doesn't go the way you want, begin again. There's a job out there for you, and God has an incredible plan for your life, and He wants you to be happy. So begin again. Thank you so much for joining me in this class. God bless. Bye.